Okay, my predictions for UFC 319 coming right up. But first, it is once again time to check in with our guy, the legend, George Rush St-Pierre. George, how are you today?
Doing fantastic. A great summer. And how about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm going to be doing great here on Saturday because this is one of the biggest pay-per-views of the year, maybe the fight of the year here. Big time fight vibes for Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. Middleweight title is on the line. So 11 fight win streak for the champion du Plessis. Chimaev 14-0 in his career. He has never been defeated. So let's talk about these two guys. Dricus du Plessis. Awkward, wild, unconventional, but effective. Now, George, some people forget that you are a former champion in this weight class, the middleweight division. So how would you approach a fight with the champ, Dricus du Plessis?
Hey, this is going to be an amazing fight because it's a clash of style. You know, you have on one side, Chimaev is a finisher. He comes out gun blazing, like crazy intensity right off the bat, doesn't take time to study his opponent. He goes right into business. And a lot of his fights are won by finishes in the first round. And on the other side, you have a guy who's like a freak of nature, like Dricus du Plessis. He's very, very strong, very well-rounded. He's good everywhere. You know, he's not a specialist, but he's very good everywhere. So it raised a question now, you know, of how this thing gonna play out. You know, is Khamzat gonna be able to take control of the fight early on and finish with an early win, or if it goes in the deep waters, what's gonna happen? Is it gonna be? Is it gonna give an edge to Dricus du Plessis? So it's a lot of questions that are gonna be asked immediately after during actually the first round of that fight.
Okay, so you look at the odds over at Bet99, and du Plessis is the underdog. Not really a small underdog either. He's plus 170. Chimaev coming back at minus 225. Are you surprised to see the champion, du Plessis? He's never been defeated in the UFC. Now, neither has Chimaev, but are you surprised to see a plus 170 number next to DDP's name over at Bet99?
Well, you know, du Plessis was the underdog for a lot of his fights. And I don't know why. I think it's because he's not a specialist. He's very good everywhere. He's a generalist. You know, he's good on the ground. He's good standing up. He's good in every department. He's not the best at something, but he's good everywhere. And on the other side, you have Chimaev is very flamboyant. You know, his style is very spectacular, very, very flamboyant. So maybe that's one of the reasons why the odds are shifting this way. But if you look at the fight, it's a very hard one to call. Very, very hard one.
Okay, so from the moment Chimaev debuted in the UFC, we were told that he is going to be a future champion. He fought at 170 and, of course, 185. But there's been a lot of speed bumps along the way. Illnesses, pulling out of fights, weight cutting issues, massive gaps in between fights to get to this point. But his body of work is super impressive. 14-0, like I said, 8 finishes in the first round. Is the key to beating him simply getting through the first round with him? Because we have seen him fade later in fights against high-level competition like Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns.
That's the thing. If for Chimaev, I believe he needs to take control of the fight right off the bat in the first round. And he's got a very good inverted katagatame. So watch out for that inverted katagatame. He likes to put his opponent on the ground and use his ground and pound as his opponent try to belly down to stand up. He like to go and shoot that chokehold, that inverted katagatame, and he's very successful at it. That's his bread and butter. And on Dricus du Plessis' side, I think he needs to be aware that he's probably gonna be on his back at some point during that fight. He needs to weather the storm. He needs to know that it's either if he I think the best way for him to win is to catch Chimaev on the way in or to get him in the deep waters in the later rounds. Because we know that Chimaev comes out with a lot of intensity in the beginning, and he's very, very skilled. And so far, he has been able to put everybody down that he have fought. So he's probably gonna put Dricus du Plessis down early on in a fight. But maybe if I'm on Dricus du Plessis' team, I would tell him to, to accept that, don't be discouraged, and try to get him in the later round. So there you go. You have the two side of the strategy. Depending of how you think the fight gonna happen, now you can make your bet thinking about who you think gonna win. Okay, so if it's an early win, an early stoppage, I think it has more chance to favor Chimaev. But if it goes maybe in a deep waters, and it's a very intense physical fight, I think it can favor du Plessis.
Okay, so yes, it's a pretty common opinion that a prolonged fight would favor the champion du Plessis here. Easier said than done, though. We see Chimaev come out like a bat out of hell, a very impressive first-round finish over Robert Whittaker in his most recent fight. How do you prolong a fight against this guy? How do you get through the first round? George St-Pierre, if you're training, what is the approach for the first round versus Chimaev to make sure the fight goes into the later rounds?
Yeah, he needs to work a lot. He needs to use his footwork. He needs also to work on his defense, especially for that inverted katagatame. You need to make sure that if he get taken down and he try to stand up, to not get caught in the position where, as you're trying to stand up from the floor, your head ends up being lower than your hips. Because when you're in that position on a 4-point, that's when Chimaev shoots in his inverted katagatame. But I'm sure his coaches have told him that. Easier said than done, 100%. But du Plessis is a very, very resilient fighter, very strong, with a lot of stamina. We've seen him in a lot of fight, like going for the full length of the fight, and he doesn't fade out. He even keep pushing, and his intensity rise as the fight get past the later round.
Okay, so that is a massive fight taking place on Saturday night. Another massive fight, maybe later this year, maybe early into 2026. It's going to be Ilia Topuria's first title defense there at 155 pounds. And we have 3 contenders here, George, and each of these guys has a pretty decent case for the title shot. So play matchmaker for us, George. You can only pick one of these guys. Who are you giving the fight to? Justin Gaethje, Armen Tsarukyan, or Paddy Pimblett to take on Ilia Topuria in his first title defense at 155 pounds?
Man, hey, it's a hell of a question. I think I would like to see a mini tournament in between these 4. I think I would like to see a tournament, like maybe you give a shot to Tsarukyan. Then you put in the other bracket, Gaethje and Pimblett. But you can do any way you want, because if you look, they already have an history, Pimblett and Topuria together. Last fight they face up in the octagon. I think maybe right now that's the fight to make, as far as for the fan interest. But you can do it. You can put Tsarukyan out there, Armen Tsarukyan, Paddy Pimblett, Justin Gaethje. There's a lot of fight to be made between these 4. But you put these 4 and you make a sort of a round robin. I think that's the thing to do for UFC now.
Yeah, I think the big money fight would be Paddy Pimblett. Justin Gaethje, we kind of been there, done that. He's fought for a couple titles. Still fighting at a very high level, mind you. But Tsarukyan, do you think that they maybe punish him a little bit? Because he was supposed to fight Makhachev for the title, and he pulled out the night before.
Yeah.
So do you think they make him hop back in and fight somebody else?
I think it has to do by creating a story. They want an emotion be related to the fight, and also depending if they planning on doing the fight in Europe. I think if it's in Europe, they need to put Paddy Pimblett there. If it's more in America, or like depending where the fight is, if it's in America, I need to put Gaethje or Tsarukyan, depending where the fight will take place. But you need to build up the fight. I'm not talking as a diehard fan here. I'm talking as a, if I put myself in the shoes of the promoter as a businessman, you want to create a story because you want people to tune in. We already have a little story right now between Topuria and Pimblett, and maybe as this thing progress, and maybe if Gaethje fights Topuria, maybe something will happen and it will create a story to set the table for the big final. But either of those fight as a diehard fans will be amazing.
Yeah, I'll be watching any of those fights. Maybe not on pay-per-view, though. Big news out of the UFC here. I'm speaking to George on Monday. This news broke on Monday morning. The UFC has signed a landmark 7-year deal, $7.7 billion, George, with Paramount and CBS. Now, you first competed in the UFC over 20 years ago now. Did you ever imagine at the time that the sport would grow this big to be on the same level as other major professional sports? And any thoughts on the deal with the UFC moving off of pay-per-view?
Well, it could be good for the UFC as a promoter, but terrible for the fighters, because when I was competing, I was able to have a great argument to negotiate on my contract. I could tell the UFC, hey, if you want me to do all the promotion, I want to become a partner. I want a piece of the pie to negotiate a part of the pay-per-view revenue. Because if I'm doing all the promotion, I'm helping you, but you need to help me. You need to make me a partner. Now with this new deal, I'm not sure if they're going to have that argument to use in their negotiation. I'm talking about the fighters. So it might be a bad thing for the fighters in a way that now they don't have any, that they have less leverage to negotiate their contract. So it depends how it's gonna play out. I don't know what's gonna be happening with the UFC in between the fighters. I'm retired now, so but that's what I think. I think it's gonna take off some leverage for the big names to have an argument to negotiate more money.
So how would that work? You would say, I want a certain percentage of pay-per-view buys, and then they would calculate it after a couple weeks and send you a check. Simple as that?
Absolutely, because after the pay-per-view buy, that's how you make the most of the money. The money for example, for me or a lot of fighters in my era, the big names, they had a guarantee purse, they had a guarantee win purse on top of that, but they had also a guarantee purse regarding the pay-per-view buys. And this is it's not an emotional argument. It's very rational. You say, hey, you make, if I'm on the card, you'll make that much more than if I'm not on the card. So I deserve a piece of the pie. I deserve this because it's rational. There's no way to argue with it. The number don't lie. But now I don't know how they're gonna use a rational argument, because if they don't have the data on the viewership, maybe maybe there's another way and I'm not aware of it. But I hope the fighters will have something to gain in that deal.
Yeah, it's a definite win for the fans with it being off pay-per-view. I think it's going to give more casual fans, and maybe if you aren't even a fan of the sport yet, better access to the sport because you're not needing to shell out the money on pay-per-view. But yeah, that's a pretty big bonus of being a champion in these pay-per-view main events, is that you're getting the pay-per-view bonus. So I guess we'll await word on that. I'm sure Dana White's going to be in front of her microphone there in Chicago in the build up to the pay-per-view, and we'll get some more answers on that here as the week continues. But George, we will leave it at that. We'll let you get back to your summer there. A lot of big fights still coming up here in 2025, though, so we'll look forward to discussing those with you. Best of luck with any bets that you're placing over at Bet99 there too, George.
Thank you, guys, and I can't wait for this weekend. It's gonna be a great fight. What a final!
Let's go. All right, you heard from George. Now you're going to hear from me, my 3 best bets for UFC 319, all 3 of the plus money variety. That's right. Let's get things going with the main event. And if I'm betting plus money, I'm betting on the champion, Dricus du Plessis, to retain. Now up to plus 190 odds over at Bet99. So this comes down to a couple things for me: striking, defense, and Chimaev potentially slowing down as the fight progresses. So Du Plessis, this guy lands a lot. 6.12 significant strikes per minute, and he hits hard. He is an absolute tank. Chimaev, it might surprise you to hear, the striking defense in the UFC has not been good. He's striking defense, the number sitting there at 41%. That's not good, and I think that's going to take its toll on him. He's going to get hit a lot, and that will take its toll as the fight progresses. Yes, I do expect this fight to progress as well. Chimaev, obviously, very dangerous early on, but the longer this fight progresses, the more that's going to favor Du Plessis. And we have seen with Chimaev, he has faded a little bit in some of his more marquee fights versus some bigger names, Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman. Du Plessis, obviously a much bigger fighter than those guys. And Du Plessis, I think he's just getting better here as his career goes. He's undefeated in the UFC. A lot of big fights, a lot of main event experience versus high-level guys. I think he's being undervalued a little bit here. The champion at plus 190, so we will take him to retain. Let's drop down to the co-main event once again. Go with an underdog, Lerone Murphy, plus 150, taking on Aaron Pico. A lot going on here for Aaron Pico, making his UFC debut here. Kind of a short notice fight. He was supposed to fight against Evloev a couple weeks ago, but that fight fell apart due to an injury. Let's call it what it is. Pico, obviously a very talented guy, but he's kind of built his resume off the back of a lot of no-name entry-level guys in Bellator. Now he's taking on the number 6 guy in this division, a guy in Murphy who has 17 career pro fights and has never lost. He's kind of been gradually brought along by the UFC. He hasn't quite been thrown into the fire, but the level of competition is rising with each passing fight, and he keeps passing, coming off a pretty impressive, a little bit of a boring performance against Josh Emmett, but it got the job done, and we're looking to get the W here. He outlanded him by 43 significant strikes. A couple fights removed from outlanding Edson Barbosa by 140 significant strikes. So I do think he's going to have the edge on the feet. His takedown defense, not elite by any means here, so you do have to worry about that a little bit. But he has shown an ability that he is hard to hold down. He is hard to control. And at plus 150 odds, I absolutely think he is worth a wager here. My third and final plus money bet for UFC 319. Let's go to the prelims. Jessica Andrade. I feel like she fights 8 times a year. She's taking on Lupi Godonez, and we're going to take this fight not to go the distance at plus 200. Absolutely worth a shot at this number here for Jessica Andrade. She has that killer be killed, all gas, no break style that has resulted in 12 of her last 16 fights being finished inside the distance. She's been subbed and KO'd numerous times. She's also done some subbing and KOing. Both throw a lot of strikes, so I think we're going to see a lot of openings for one or both of these fighters to get hurt, and an opening for someone to get finished. 2-1 odds. I love that one quite a bit. Okay, so there you have it. My best bets for UFC 319. Hit up the comment section right down there. Who are you taking in the main event? What is your best bet for this card? Make sure you're locking in those bets over at Bet99. Enjoy the fights on Saturday night. Best of luck.